Welcome everyone to From Data Chaos to Clarity, Strategies for Scalable Storage. I'm Ian from Hitachi Vantara. Really appreciate you spending some time with us today, especially if you're joining in between meetings, incidents, or while juggling yet another capacity planning spreadsheet. But look, you're not going to be disappointed today. I'm joined by two people who live and breathe these challenges every day. First of all, Kerry Porter, Director of Sales for the West for Hitachi Vantara, deals with customers all day, every day. Kerry, thanks for having you.
Hello, everyone, and just a pleasure to be here and looking forward to our discussion today.
Awesome. And also we have Whit Walters, analyst from GigaOm. You know, the one and only Whit Walters, the author of the 2025 GigaOm Radar for Primary Storage. Sir, thank you for being with us.
Ian, thanks for having me, and flattery will get you everywhere.
I hope so. That's what I want to see. But look, promise to our audience, first of all, look, this is not going to be a product pitch, no feature bingo, no sales slides hiding in the background. Sorry, Kerry, right? But this is a conversation about what's happening in storage today. I want to just set the stage, first of all, because that level set needs to happen. Most organizations didn't design their storage environment to look the way it does today. It's evolved. One workload here, one cloud decision there, maybe a little temporary solution that somehow became permanent. But, you know, what that evolution leaves behind is data growing faster than budgets, workloads spread across on-prem, cloud, edge, performance that's absolutely fine until suddenly it's not, and a growing collection of tools that all promises to simplify things, but it can't because you've got 14 of them. And then there's the cost of that complexity that shows up in real ways. Increased risk of downtime, compliance stress, and the fact that your teams are spending more time managing infrastructure than actually enabling the business. Now, what's interesting is that this is just anecdotal, right? But Whit, I want to come to you first of all. This lines up really closely with what you saw in the GigaOm research, right?
Yeah, Kerry, very much so. Some of the things that stood out this year was how consistent the feedback was across multiple industries. We were hearing from organizations that they want fewer silos. They want fewer tools and fewer things that require constant manual interventions. CIOs and CTOs are constantly looking at how can I reduce that tool sprawl? And one CIO actually told us, I don't need faster storage. I need fewer 2 a.m. alerts. Now that quote really stuck with me. And because as a GigaOm analyst, I've also been a practitioner and I've also been in the trenches and I've also managed teams. And so I really resonated with that. So there were also three themes that came through very clearly this year as well. Consolidation and automation are accelerating because teams are stretched very thin. Cyber resilience is also now assumed, right? It wasn't something that was kind of, everybody was saying this has to be part of it, and it's not an option anymore. And cloud-like operations are everywhere because they're becoming the baseline and the norm, and that expectation for how enterprise storage should work. So when we were evaluating vendors, we didn't just look at the specs. We also started to look at the business criteria, what kind of is important to the business and how these platforms run. We also looked at how livable these platforms were over time. And when we say livable, can you actually live with them and use them and not get that 2 a.m. call? So performance, scalability, ease of operation, and long-term innovation all mattered. And that's where Hitachi Vantara stood out both as a leader and as an outperformer on this year's radar.
I think it's also the most universal parenting KPI as well, right? For those of us that have children. Look, I want to come back to those four pillars of scalable storage platforms, and I want to start with performance because not in the look at me, I'm bragging marketing sense kind of side, but actually the fact that the radar puts a lot of emphasis on the predictability of performance. And I think that's so important for today's most modern applications.
Ian, that's exactly right. So when you're looking at environments, you're looking at running mixed workloads and you're running them at the same time. So you're running databases and your analytics and your data warehouse and your data lakes, you're running VMs and everything that they're doing. And you're running containers, you're running Docker, you're running all those things with the microservices. But the real challenge is One workload doesn't run performance for everything else.
That's what customers talk about most. They're less impressed with peak numbers. Everybody's got peak numbers, and they're more focused on what happens during the upgrades, during failures, during heavy workloads. They want to see performance during those tough times. Predictable performance is what builds trust and keeps operations calm.
Oh, that's such a great way of putting it, Kerry. Keeping operations calm. And I think that comes back to the resilience and data protection. And it feels like that resilience piece has become the new definition of availability, right? It's can I keep my operations calm?
Ian, that's exactly right. So we're well past that 2 a.m. window of doing backups and kind of then your storage making that Death Star sound as it's shutting down the power and going. But the expectation now is that resiliency is built directly into your architecture, right? It's kind of a first class citizen as opposed to a secondary thought. So this includes immutability. So when I'm storing things, I need to make sure it can withstand ransomware attacks. It can do other things like rapid recovery if I do have an issue. And I'm looking at managing all of my SLAs and my SLOs and that design of the architecture that assumes that something will eventually go wrong because it always does.
And you know what? Customers want that, but without having to stitch together dozens of separate tools, right? No one wants to be assembling a protection strategy in the middle of an incident.
No, and it's those forcing functions that make people realize where we do need to drive more operational simplicity. And simplicity gets talked about a lot, right? Because it's, hey, this tool will simplify your life. This tool will also simplify your life. And to your point of, well, how many tools do I need? And delivering simplicity seems to be getting harder and harder.
Yeah, Ian, I agree. And this is really where some of the leaders on the radar this year separate themselves. What we were seeing is that AI driven management and intelligent automation aren't just about replacing people. What you really want to be able to do with those AI driven tools is reduce the friction so that your teams can focus on higher value work. You want to be able to take those really good people and give them tools that help accelerate and extend them, and then be able to do things better, faster, and easier.
You know, when I'm talking to customers, I hear this constantly, right? Teams are smaller, environments are more complex, and no one has time to become an expert in 5 different management interfaces. They just don't have the staff or the time to do it. If a system isn't simple day one, it usually becomes a long-term liability. We've all heard about shelfware. If it's too complex, too difficult, it sits on the shelf and customers don't use it.
And you're so right. That long term liability element, cost and efficiency start to come into that as well. Because when it's complicated, well, it's costing me more money, right? And the fact is, with simplicity, I also want to drive sustainability into my business too. When there is this cost, it often shows up after decisions are already made, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And performance matters. But that long term cost of ownership also matters too, because cost of ownership also includes people and how they use the tools and the value that they get out of them. Also, energy efficiency and then intelligent tiering of data are now central to a CIO, CTO's buying decision. And then sustainability is no longer a side conversation. How much energy does it use? As the cost of energy goes up, you're also thinking about how quickly can I reduce some of those things? So sustainability really matters.
Predictability is huge. Customers want to know what storage costs next year, right? So they can go ask for their budget, so they can plan for their budgets, right? Not just on day one, right? And we know how environments change and projects and applications, are deployed, which affects, right, that predictability of cost, right? Surprise cloud bills, right, or uncontrolled sprawl can derail even the best initiatives. So let's wrap this into something practical. Okay. Here's a simple framework of questions that teams can use to better understand and have a plan. Okay. First, let's talk about scalability and performance, right? Can the system scale linearly? Right? That's important. That's key because we know data growth is unpredictable. How does it behave under mixed workloads? Workloads are changing all the time. Does performance stay predictable during upgrades or failover? You gotta know this. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. Understanding how the solution reacts and handles under certain circumstances that are not ideal. So, second, cyber resilience, right? Are ransomware protection built in or bolted on? Again, we just talked about we keep adding different applications to get a full solution, right? How fast can primary services be restored, right? It's return to operations, not recovery time objective. How long will it take us to get back to operational? Is immutability native? And third, operational simplicity. We touched on this earlier. How unified is management across hybrid and cloud environments? What automation or AI capabilities are usable? Very, very important initiative these days. How steep is the learning curve? Is it going to take my staff how long to be able to learn and master all of these applications? And finally, cost and sustainability. What drives long-term PCO? How efficiently does the platform use power and cooling? Is tiering automated or manual? So what's helpful that GigaOm evaluation criteria map directly to these questions. So you can benchmark vendors objectively.
Oh, that's a great set of questions, Kerry. And I think all of this comes back down to simplicity, right? And I'd love to wrap things up because data growth just isn't slowing down and that complexity isn't going away. But with the right principles in place, performance at scale, built-in resilience, operational simplicity, cost efficiency, storage platforms can move from being a technical challenge to a real competitive advantage for our customers. I want to just say a huge thank you to Kerry and Whit for the insights and for keeping this grounded. We weren't talking about products here. We wanted to talk about what's right for our customers and the challenges they're facing. And for everyone that's joined, we've made, the GigaOm primary storage radar available for all of you. So you can explore the findings in more depth and attune them to what's right for your business and hopefully get some real value from it. Thanks again for your time and hopefully fewer 2 a.m. alerts tonight, chaps. All right. All right. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Ian. Thank you.